everyone, I am here today with a different angle because we now have a cabinet here instead of a hamster cage, and I used to prop my phone on the hamster cage to film, so this is a new angle for me. It does mean I need to sort out these bookshelves ASAP because they are a mess, but I'm here today to do a weekly reading wrap up for you. This week I have read 2 books and I feel like that should have been a higher number, but what the hey, 2 books. One of them was a Kindle book and the other was an audiobook. So we'll start with the Kindle book that I received from the author in return for an honest review. We Own the Sky by Sarah Crawford, and this is a YA novel that has a sort of ancient Greek mythology kind of aspect thrown into contemporary kind of setting, and it all makes it a bit kind of slightly fantasy-ish. It's kind of difficult to explain, but I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. And just to give you a bit more of a better description than that, this follows a young girl named Sylvia who wants to create music. Her father is a musician, her mother has sadly passed away, but her father is a musician and she really lives for music, and she is at school sort of struggling to fit in a little bit, and she keeps seeing these like flickering people. And one of these times she actually starts talking to one of them and discovers that actually they are muses. And while this does fit into the traditional sense of muses, there are more in this book than what is sort of traditionally thought about in mythology. So beyond the traditional, is it 9? You also have extra muses that have like basically have been like artists that have died and then have been given a chance to either become a muse or to, you know, pass over. And so a lot of them have decided to become muses, and so there are these half-human kind of muses walking around being inspiration to so many sort of different types of artists all over the planet. And yeah, Sylvia can see these flickering people, the muses, and the story sort of stems from there, really. I don't want to say too much more, I don't want to end up accidentally spoiling anything, but there is a muse called Vincent, and he is the reason why I gave the book 4 stars rather than 5. He gave me a very Twilight feel, a very Edward Twilight feel, and that made me a little bit uncomfortable. The whole immortal guy that is very old in that sense, being around I think she was 15-year-old girl, I wasn't necessarily totally okay with that. So I did knock it down by 1 star for that, but overall I overlooked that because the whole idea behind the story was just so interesting. The writing really gripped me, really pulled me in. It didn't feel like a first book, like a debut book at all. As I say, like the writing was just absolutely fantastic, and so yeah, I highly recommend this if you're looking for a YA novel that is very music heavy, which I feel like there aren't many of those about, but music heavy with some Greek mythology thrown in. I will be continuing on with the series. The book ended on quite the cliffhanger, so apparently that's going to be out in a couple of months, so can't wait to read and review that one too. The second book I finished this week was More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera, and oh my goodness, this book, I was listening to it on audio, and as you may know if you watched my audiobook tour the other day, I will leave it linked in the cards notes down below, but I was talking about how I'd been wanting to pick this book up, but the hype and everything, so I'd avoided picking it up for ages, and yeah, I didn't have worried. The hype for this book is so worth it. This was a fantastic read, or rather listen, as I listened to the audiobook. The narrator for this, by the way, is just fabulous. I highly recommend checking out the audiobook for this rather than a physical copy, because the narrator just like totally sucked me into the story. He felt like the real voice of the character. If I was still in a position where I gave half stars, I don't let myself, even though occasionally I kind of want to, this would be a 4.5 star book for me. Like, it just wasn't quite the 5. I just didn't quite get emotionally pulled in enough, but it did pull at my heartstrings. It did almost ruined me. So this book blew me away. I don't know why I didn't pick this up sooner, basically. And this is a YA novel that focuses on race, sexuality and class as well, I'd say. So yeah, highly recommend this. 4 stars. So that leads me on to my TBR bucket, which I forgot to get down from up there, so be right back. There we go. As if by magic I now have my bucket, so I've gone a bit too far down. I kind of feel like I'm pulling 500 at once. There we go. Got one. Basically, I've not even started trying to read last week's TBR bucket choice yet, but as my new rule states, I'm just going to pull one out every video regardless. So let's see what we have. So last week I pulled one out that I knew straight away what it was. I was like, oh my god, no, I was so excited. I honestly don't recognise this one at all. I'm just going to look it up. Right, so after quickly looking, basically the book is called Shame on Me and it's by Tara Sivek. And as I said, this rang no bells at all, so I've just looked it up. And apparently it's the second book in a series. The series is called the Fool Me Once series. The problem with this is, I'm not entirely sure I own book 1. So I might need to look and see whether I can even read this without reading book 1. Otherwise I'm going to have to try and get book 1 and also add that into my TBR pile. So I'm not sure when I'll be getting to this one. What's it even about? Let's have a look. Oh, it's short. It's 149 pages. That's just what I need right now, a short book. Basically, it says that ex-model Paige is fed up with being just a pretty face, blah, 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 blah. I probably shouldn't read too much of that because maybe it will spoil the first book, which I may or may not need to read. Who knows? So yeah. There are going to be times where I don't know what I've picked out because I won't remember buying these books from like 3 years ago plus, but you know. Meanwhile, for what else I am going to be reading during this next week. Getting a bit fed up of holding this book up now, but I am getting there. I think I will finish it this week, to be honest. I'm on page 458, so I'm nearly there. Nearly. Then I plan to another book that I'm fed up of holding up, so I'm not even going to bother over there. Then I'm going to continue on with Night Film, get that finished. Then I want to move on to Am I Normal Yet, which again is over there in the must-read pile. I also want to reread Harry Potter as soon as possible. There's so many things I want to be reading, and I don't know why I'm even bothering telling you because I've been that slow with my reading this year that I will probably finish Lord of Shadows and that will be it, and I'll be sat here next week going, I finished 1 book! No, really. I'm hoping to finish my audiobook by this time next week too, because my current audiobook is Twelfth Night by Shakespeare. It's quite short, it's only a couple of hours long, so as I said, I expect to have that done by next week. And I'm mainly reading this because I want to sort of get the experience for a review kind of setting, as in like Shakespeare can be quite hard for people to digest to read a play to themselves. People often find that once they watch the play, they get a lot better of a grasp, or like a movie kind of adaptation of it. They get a better grasp of the story. So I wanted to see whether that would also be the case with an audiobook. I've listened to about a quarter of it so far, and I can honestly say that even though it's one that I have read in the past, so I know the story, I understand the story, I'm struggling. I'm going to have to slow the speed down, I think, because it's just like, it's a little bit too much. But yeah, more about that next week when I've hopefully finished it. And as ever, I always have at least 1 physical book, 1 audiobook and 1 Kindle book on the go. So my current Kindle book is a book that I received from the publishers via NetGalley, and that is, what was it called again? Mask of Shadows by Lindsay Miller. And I've not read enough of that one yet to really sort of be able to say anything about it really. It's a fantasy. I've really barely started it. I'm like a couple of chapters in, so hopefully maybe I'll get that finished in time for next week. We'll have to wait and see. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know what you think of the new backdrop and position and see whether you like it or not. I don't think I'll ever be able to film at that angle I was before ever again anyway, so I'm going to have to make this work somehow or else find somewhere totally different to film. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe by clicking the image of me just so if you want to see more book reviews and other bookish content from me. And I will see you tomorrow, hopefully, with a book review. Bye bye!